Okay. Team, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a late Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock Mountain Time, 3 o'clock on the Pacific Time. For those of you in the Central and East Coast, you're probably already at happy hour. I'm sure this is being broadcast across all the sports bar TVs. So we're super excited for you to join us today. What makes this really important to me is the NIL reality check, what high school athletes actually need to know. And we're sitting down with Dr. John. And when I say Dr. John, don't let that confuse you, team. Dr. John, actually, he's going to get into his background and his pedigree because he was a football scholarship athlete at Vanderbilt, went on to play professional football, various different leagues that I'm going to let him get into that because what his background has done is really help athletes navigate to that next level. Because Dr. John and I, when we were playing, there was no NIL. We knew about the $100 handshakes, but they weren't the NIL opportunities they have today. And the transfer portal really didn't exist unless you wanted to sit for a year or drop down to Division II. So I'm going to go through the slides real quick so you can know what to expect. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. John to talk a little bit about who he is and his pedigree. So the first thing we're going to do is the NIL reality check. Dr. John will get into that. Then we're going to get into the hype versus reality. And then from there, we're going to move straight into the NIL decision filter. And then next, we're going to go right into the NIL reality check, character clout. And then we're going to wrap it up with a QR code to where you can get a hold of either Aaron or myself at Blueprint to Blue Chip. But we're also going to have show notes for Dr. John DeWitt. Dr. John, thank you so much for joining us on a Friday afternoon. We're really excited about this. We're going to showcase you. This is all about you, your experience, and what you could do to help these high school athletes and their families. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. John. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely happy to be here. I'll go back to high school because that's kind of who I talk to. Didn't start on the high school team until I was a senior. Thought we went to the state championship game. Thought I was going to be done after that game, so I played like it was the last game I was ever going to play. Led the team in tackles. We ended up winning 7-6, so it wasn't that much fun to watch. But went to Vanderbilt, got accepted academically. Went in, the personnel director actually told me that I was too small and too slow to play in the SEC. And I just said, okay, and just let that be a little more fuel to the fire to work twice as hard. Got a scholarship after the first semester. Actually got second team All SEC my junior year, I believe.
Nice.
Tried out with the 49ers after that. Took a year off, coached my high school team because obviously the 49ers thing didn't work out. And then was a youth counselor at the church and decided that I wasn't done yet. So went to one of these little scout camps you can pay $100 to go to. And the scout for the Oilers was there. He sent me a contract the next day for $103,000, which was the most money I'd ever thought about. It was the basic rookie contract. And I think I kind of got ripped off on that one because after I signed it, he called me the next day and said, "You really need an agent." So I was like, oh, okay. So played there, went over, like you said, played in a bunch of different leagues, played in Scotland, won it's called the World League Championship back then. I even had my ring. I wanted to show everybody. But after that, I went to chiropractic college. I blew up my ankle, blew up my elbow, blew out a bunch of stuff, and told myself that the first surgery I had, that was going to be the end of my career. And I blew out the bicep tendon and was like, well, that's not that much of a surgery. So I just kept going and going until finally I blew out my ankle. And I was already 32 at the time. So I was as old as some of the coaches. So I was like, yeah, I guess I'll hang it up. But and I'm sure you guys will go into, preparing for when sports is over. And that's a really big thing, especially in pro sports, because you don't know anything else. And then went to chiropractic college, and now I started seeing when NIL came out in college, kind of like Tom was saying, we didn't have that back when we were in school. I mean, you couldn't even go to a fan's house for lunch because that was considered a violation.
Right.
And since all this has happened with NIL, it started trickling down into high school. And I knew that if I didn't understand it, that pretty much most of the high school kids and their parents didn't understand it either. And so I made it my mission to educate the high school kids and their parents on how it works and how it's important that you make decisions based on your long-term goals and not just I want to make money right now. And that's just kind of where I fell into it, because I know education is really important. And if you understand a problem, then it's already half solved. But if you don't know what the problem even is, because you're listening to social media and all this other stuff, if that comes up, then you have an emotional reaction to it. And that's when a lot of kids make the wrong decision and get into bad situations.
No question. No question. I'm always surprised, even with a lot of the information that Aaron and I meet with these high school athletes, the coaches, as well as the parents, they still don't have enough information. So, Dr. John, why don't you get into the reality check of NIL for high school athletes?
Okay, so the reality check is it's that NIL is not what you think it is. I mean, parents and kids see on social media the kids making millions of dollars and thinking, oh, my kid's going to do that. I mean, the majority of NIL deals in high school are either for like free gear from the local gym or free pizza. And the average, I believe, it's like $200-300. It's not life-changing money. But the thing that gets tricky is you have to really protect your reputation and your character when you're doing all these social media posts, because that is what it is nowadays. Everybody does that. But it's really important that you keep in mind that recruiters for the different colleges are going to be looking at that. They can look. I was just talking to a gentleman earlier that said that some of the recruiters went back to a post that a potential recruit had made when he was 12 years old. And they were like, oh, I don't know about that one. And I was like, he was 12.
Right.
But you have to keep that in mind, because it's even on comments, if you say your team beats you or your team across town, the rival beats you, and then they say something derogatory towards you or your team, and you get your feelings hurt and you jump in there and start getting in a fight in the comments, well, then the teams don't look at that well either, because it shows a lack of maturity. And I mean, it's hard because you're a kid and you're not mature yet, but you have to learn how to control once again, your emotional reaction to things. And so it's something that's really tricky, because like recruiters, Michigan State, I was talking to him, and high school kids just want to know, what's the NIL deal and when can I transfer? And you can't look at it that way, because that is like a job interview when you go in and ask for when you get your bonus and when can you leave. And I mean, if you're hiring somebody, that's not what they want to hear. You don't sound serious about being with the team, helping to grow the team, win championships with the team, and build that team culture, which is also an issue with the transfer portal and how that is affecting college and high school. Because I just heard the other day that there were 7,000 transfers in high school in Florida last year. And the average number of times a kid would transfer was like 3 or 4 times. One kid had transferred 8 times in 4 years. And I mean, it's just mind blowing, because how are you supposed to develop a culture in a team of winning when you never know who your teammates are going to be, because they're always leaving and going all these other places. And it just makes it a big challenge. And the competition between parents is hard, because if somebody down the street, their kid has a deal, and so then you want your kid to have a deal, and you just look at the numbers, you don't actually stop and think, okay, is this going to fit into my long-term goals, or is it just going to be a quick win for $100 or whatever? And you can't think about it that way, because decisions you make even when you're 16 years old can affect your athletic career for years. And so you have to be really careful what you decide to do. And so I came up with a whole framework based on what class you're in, what what you should focus on, and it goes freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, obviously, and we'll go into that more later. But it's one of those things that you got to get your head out of the sky and think, oh, it's going to be a dream and my parents are never going to have to work again. That's not going to be the case. And unless you're like a Manning or something, or making millions of dollars. And you just need to keep your feet grounded, focus on development, and really being the best athlete you can be in that particular sport. And then the other NIL stuff is just going to start coming to you, but you have to be prepared for it.
No question. One of the things you touched on something Aaron and I have dealt with it, in the spirit of being straight shooters with these athletes and there's these families, we talk about the probability of going pro is very small. We actually have had athletes say to us, Dr. John, listen, T, you said I'm not going pro, so I got to get paid. I need a bag. So these guys are just they're no longer motivated by the game. They're motivated by the money. And then if it doesn't work out, they just jump into the transfer portal. And you and I both know that when your eligibility is up, you're useless to that athletic program. They're done with you. So if you're transferring around, most of these units aren't even going to go with you. So with the question, Dr. John, the questions already started rolling in, and I thought this one was relevant. And this is actually new to me too. Dr. John, I have like 5,000 followers, but my teammate has 500 and they already got a deal. How does that happen? I thought NIL was about followers.
Part of that is about followers. And I mean, you have people, I have a friend of mine that's a chiropractor that has 5 million followers on TikTok, and he doesn't have to pay for anything because he just has all those eyeballs and the brands want to get in front of those people. But when it comes to athletics, it can be, how high up are you on the ladder? Are you a starter? Are you second team? Are you third string? I mean, a third string guy that has 500,000 followers could get a brand deal, an NIL deal, before a starter that has 500, just because they have more eyeballs. Because you got to look at it from the business's perspective. They're like, okay, this guy is great and he might be good, but this guy's already got this many followers, so let's just go with him. He's the safe bet. And then later on, we'll kind of figure out if there's going to be somebody else that we want to offer that deal to.
Perfect. Another question, Dr. John, someone reached out to me on Instagram offering to help me get an NIL deal for a commission. Is this legit? And how do I know if someone's trying to help me actually or just trying to take advantage of me?
Anything you get through social media, you got to really look at it carefully. And that almost sounds like an affiliate kind of situation where if you're getting a commission or something like that, I would definitely have to look at the contract and tell them to read through it, see exactly what the deliverables are and what you get paid for and how long that lasts. And, if there's any connection to, do you have to play at a specific school? I mean, is this individual in high school? Do you know?
Yep. Sorry,
Yeah, because if you're in high school, this is interesting in high school. So you have what they call university high schools. And what all that means is they have a lot of connections to particular college teams. And so in high school, if there's another high school offering to have you come play for them, that's called inducement. You can't do that. They call it the whole pay for play that you hear all the time.
Sure.
But if it's a private school, then they have a little more leeway because they're a private school, and a lot of those private schools, charter schools, have the ability to offer players that money. And if it comes around and another school finds out about it, or the association finds out about it, then that can affect that player's eligibility, and they might have to sit out for a game or a whole season. So all of those kind of deals where it's Instagram, you really don't know who for sure you're talking to on the other side of that. I would be very leery of that and make sure you have everything down on paper. You can read through it and be like, okay, wait a minute, that sounds weird. Don't just jump into it saying, oh, I'm going to start making money. You got to get past the emotional part and really think about it and see what they're asking you for.
No question. This question went out to Miguel. Miguel, you definitely want to reach out to Dr. John. We'll have his show notes for you. That'll help you out a lot. Dr. John, my coach says I should focus on getting recruited instead of chasing NIL deals, but some of my teammates are already making money. Am I missing out listening to my coach, or can I do both?
Well, this comes back to the whole FOMO thing. It's like, okay, if your friend's making money and you're not, and your coach is saying you need to focus on development and getting your skills up, then I would listen to the coach, because the money, a small deal here and there when you're in high school, yeah, that's great. But if it's going to affect long term what your goals are, if you want to play in college, even if it's just JUCO, NAIA, boy, that's a mouthful, or Division II, Division I, any of that, you have to focus on the development, because that's what those college recruiters are going to look at. They're like, okay, wow, this guy, he didn't fall for any of the shiny object NIL things. He's really focused on being the best player he can be. And you're not only going to be seen as a good potential recruit, but it's going to show your maturity and your work ethic. And that that's something that even back when Tom and I played, that was all that mattered was how hard you were willing to work. And that is a really big part of long term. You got to have that long term goal and don't just get into being jealous of NIL deals that your other teammates might have.
Perfect. This is a great last question for the NIL reality check, and we'll move on to the next slide. Dr. John, if I sign a deal now in high school, will it affect my ability to get recruited or get a scholarship? Can NIL deals hurt my college chances?
Yes. Once again, you have to not be emotional about it. You have to sit down. You have to read exactly what the contract says, because sometimes there's exclusivity clauses in there. Say it's for a particular gym or something like that. And that means that if you get to college and there's another gym that wants to promote you there for more money, you might not be able to take that deal because that's going to affect the original contract. And situations like that, you really, I know I keep saying it, but you really have to understand and know what the contract says that you've already signed. Because if it does have something in there that mentions that, or even if it's a long-term deal, not an exclusivity thing, that can affect your eligibility in high school as well. And it's just, bottom line is you need to really keep in mind what your long-term goals are, and you need to make sure that you don't get distracted by these little NIL deals here and there, because it is just that, it's a distraction. And it's great if you're already doing well, you're doing great, you want to start building your brand and all that. That's great if you're already doing really well, but you still, even those people have to keep working hard. And then on top of that, you have to squeeze academics into school somewhere. I mean, it's it's a little hard now because you have to focus on academics for, like we mentioned before, when you're hanging up your cleats or your tennis shoes, you got to have something to fall back on. And if you didn't do well in academics, that's going to make that even harder.
No question. This next question is a perfect one to lead us into the hype versus reality. This is from a parent. We're worried about NIL affecting our son's focus on his sport and school. Is this a real concern? What's the right balance between exploring NIL opportunities and staying focused on recruitment?
I think a big part of that is, when I talk to kids, I try to keep it as objective as possible, because they don't know me, and maybe the parents upset at the coach because they're not getting enough playing time for their kid and things like that. So I just bring them in and I said, okay. And a lot of times I do like a pre-call just with the athlete and talk to them and say, okay, what's going on? What are your thoughts? Are you excited about football, or has this become a thing where you feel like you have to do it because you want to make money for your parents and make them proud just because of the money making aspect of it? Or, what's going on? And then I bring the parent in and ask them and make sure it all matches up, because if it doesn't, then there's obviously a disconnect there and they need to kind of work that out. But as far as working that out, I would take the parent, the athlete, and I would sit down with the coach and be like, okay, where are we at? What do you think would be the best thing for us to focus on? And we always go back to development, and being the best player you can be is the main thing you need to focus on. Because the NIL deals in high school aren't really that huge, but in the parents too, they can get into the whole, well, I want an NIL deal for my kid because this person has an NIL deal, and I just I don't want to make a mistake and tell him the wrong thing or her the wrong thing. But focusing on your particular sport and your academics is never going to be a mistake. So if you have an NIL deal today, 6 months from now, it's either going to be the same NIL deal or it's going to be another one, and you'll be more prepared for it when it comes up.
No question. This is a great one as far as hype versus the reality, because you touched on it earlier. It was kind of tongue in cheek, but it's something Aaron and I talk about. Most NIL deals, Dr. John, or the average is what and what?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Tom. I'm sorry.
That's all right. The average NIL deal, unless you're a Peyton Manning or you're an Arch Manning, most NIL deals are, from what I understand, are $500 to $1,000, if that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of them are just like free gear, free food from the local business, mostly local deals with different business owners. Sometimes if there's a booster that owns a pizza place or something like that, then they'll help out with that. But then that also can get a little tricky, because the recruiters will look at that and be like, okay, is that really an NIL deal, or is it just something that they're kind of hooking them up with some free pizza? And when that's kind of a gray area, we like to call it, and recruiters don't like gray areas, because then that makes the player look more like they're out for themselves and not actually out to help the team however they can.
Right. Dr. John, our athlete got a deal offer. Do we need a lawyer to review the contract, or do we need an agent? What's the cost of getting legal help versus the risk of signing something bad?
Most contracts aren't super complicated. All you need to do is read through, see exactly what they're asking for, what the deliverables are in the contract, what the time frame is. So if it says you have to do 40 social media posts in a week and you have to tag our business in that, that's not realistic, obviously. And even if you take the deal and you start, plowing through it, and the first week's great, but then life comes, steps in, and you've got a big test, or you've got prom, or whatever it might be, that's going to keep you from making those posts. And so then that's not what you agreed to. So reading through the contract multiple times is ideal, just so you can be like, I would read it, sleep on it, take it out again, read it, and you're never going to know what jumps out at you and be like, oh, wait a minute, what does that mean? I don't understand what that means. And that's when I would get an attorney to sit down with you. Some people have, hopefully, a family friend or somebody knows somebody that's an attorney that can at least sit down and be like, okay, this is what's going on. I don't do any specific legal counseling or anything like that. I just look for the red flags in a generic kind of way, like those exclusivity clauses and things like that. So, and agents, the tricky thing about agents is agents aren't regulated at all in high school. So they're starting to realize that there's some money to be made. And I'm sure they're good agents that work with high school kids.
Sure.
But that's another thing that parents kind of fall into. They're like, oh, well, this person has an agent, and I think my kid's better than he is. So maybe, I guess, my kid needs an agent too. And they take 20 or 30% of whatever business they get. So you have to take that into consideration. And I don't think, if you're not making, I was talking to an attorney the other day. He said, if you're not making in the six figures from your NIL deal, you really don't need an attorney.
Gotcha. Dr. John, our daughter is a junior soccer player, highly recruited D1 schools. If she gets paid for NIL, do we need to file taxes? What are the financial tax implications that we should look for? And can we still claim her as a dependent if she's filing taxes under her NIL umbrella? I mean, I don't know if that question's in your wheelhouse, but it's a damn good one.
I can answer some of it, but I can't go into the specifics. But I can base it on some of the financial planners that I've spoken with. Congrats on the daughter being so successful. That's really a good thing. You absolutely need to pay taxes, obviously, on any money you make. And you have to, most of the time you don't have to, but a lot of the time they get either an LLC or set up a sole proprietorship, so that they'll have write-offs for that. And that's what the wealth management people are all about. Be like, okay, if you're making this, we need to make sure that you keep a lot of this and realize you are going to be paying taxes. So you need to make sure you understand, once again, it's all about understanding. You understand the requirements for when you are making this money, to make sure that you don't make a mistake and say, oh, well, I didn't know I was supposed to pay taxes on that. And I thought that she was a minor, so she doesn't have to pay taxes because she's, under my, it's very sticky situation where you really do, in that situation, yes, you have to pay taxes. You just need to find out how to set it up so that you pay as little taxes as possible.
Awesome. Dr. John, let's get into the NIL decision filter. The three questions: am I ready? Is it real? And what's required? And then we could also get into your pillars. You talked about it earlier. I want to give you an opportunity to explain that.
Okay. So the am I ready question is in, am I ready for an NIL offer, I'm assuming, is
Correct.
something that only you'll know that. I mean, if you've sat down, you've had somebody kind of explain, okay, these are the different kinds of deals that you might work out for you. I mean, obviously there's revenue share in college. They don't have rev share in high school, so you can just eliminate that part. And just make sure you educate yourself, because if you look at NIL, I mean, good or bad, it is what it is. And if you look at it as a problem or a decision to make, you at least understand that there is something you have to figure out. So you're halfway there to being able to solve the problem. And you just need to take all the emotion out of it and be like, okay, I know these might happen, these might not happen, but I need to be prepared and ready when they do come. And that's like the biggest thing, because it's when you are being emotional, you just jump into stuff, and that's when mistakes happen. And you'd rather, I talked to a litigation attorney the other day. He said, if these clients of mine had a better understanding before any of these deals came up, they wouldn't even have to see me. And it's just sad seeing these younger kids getting involved in all this stuff. And for number two, yes, NIL is real. And the number of NIL deals in high school, they're not publicly reported a lot of the time, but the numbers I saw were over 1,000 a year. So it's definitely a thing. And it's relatively new. It just started a couple of years ago in high school. And, a lot of times the athletic department, the coaches, they don't even understand what the association rules are for their particular state. And that is where it gets tricky, because if you go to your coach and ask a question about it, there's a good chance they're not exactly sure how it works. And if they try to help you out and connect you with a business or something, that you can't do that in pretty much all the states, because they can't be involved in that, which is why I try to educate everybody, the ADs, the coaches, everybody, so that everybody's on the same page. And the rules for NIL change, seems like every week. So you have to be really up to date on what the latest things are. And what's required for NIL, that just depends on whatever the contract is. Requirements as far as what you have to do, the deliverables, I said before. That's really all you need. You don't have to have an agent. You don't have to have an attorney. Just as long as you understand what the contract is asking for, and you need to make sure everything is in writing. Because if somebody does the whole handshake, yeah, we'll take care of you. You got to get in writing, because at the very least, you can show college recruiters, see, this is in writing. This is why I did this. And once again, it shows that you're mature enough to understand that, like it or not, this is a business, and you have to make sure you have everything on paper so that it's clear that you are aware of everything that's going on.
Awesome. This is a very relevant question right here. Dr. John, our son is a two-sport athlete in high school. He's a junior wrapping up track season, and he is a highly recruited running back. The school hasn't given us clear guidelines of what's allowed for NIL. Should we talk to the athletic director? How do we understand the rules? And my son is adamant about running track and playing football at college, because he feels like more sports means more NIL opportunities. True or false on that?
That's a good. True or false? Was that a true or false question?
That was, I'm sorry, that was me that was me saying true or false. Malik is a two-sport
multiple sports. That gives you more, once again, more eyeballs on what you're doing. And so technically that could be more offers, but there's really no cut and dry. If you have this many sports, you're going to make this much more in NIL stuff. Plus the track and the football goes together, especially being a running back. And so they could focus. He could get like a tennis shoe deal, or, a variety of other deals. But the AD should know how the NIL rules work in that particular state. And if they don't, they can Google the high school association. It's usually under the amateur status in the documents, but it's buried in there pretty good. So it's hard to find. So it's always better to ask the athletic director or the coach. Probably the coach first, to see if he knows, just because the athletic director has so much other stuff going on. And if he's not sure, then just make an appointment to talk with the AD, and he'll walk you through what's good and what's not good.
Awesome. Great question right here. Dr. John, one of my athletes got approached for a deal and asked if they should take it. What's my role as a coach? Should I give them advice or stay out of it?
Stay out of it. Because if you try to connect people with NIL deals, and even if there's any tiny bit that it looks like you may have been a part of it, then that's a big red flag, and that's going to get you, and it could potentially get the school in trouble and cause that athlete to lose eligibility. So wow. yeah, just step back and be like, you know what, I would love to help you, but I have to stay out of that. And you can try to figure it out. You can talk to me or talk to somebody about, what you need to look out for.
Awesome. Another coach, some of my athletes are distracted by NIL opportunities at the high school level instead of focusing on their recruitment and development. How do I handle this as a coach without discouraging them?
That is a very big issue right now. Like I said, back to social media, they see people making money, and half the time the numbers they're talking about aren't actually real. Because, like I said, you can't look it up publicly and see, oh, he's making this. Well, he could be quadrupling what this person's actually making. So it is so. Wow, I forgot. What was the question again?
No, it was just about the coaches getting
Oh,
involved.
the work ethic. Correct. The development. And yeah. Bottom line is you always want to be the best you can be. And that's where Tom and I can relate. Back before NIL, it's almost like just pretend there is no NIL. Be the best you can be. Work your tail off more than anybody else on the team or any other team, so that when you're in there in the trenches and you're exhausted and it's raining and you're just like, I don't know if I can take another step. And then you think back to, wait a minute, I didn't go running out in the snow like a crazy person for nothing. And I know none of these other guys on the field did that. So I'm going to suck it up and I'm going to go. Development's always comes ahead of everything else, especially at the freshman and sophomore levels. And because you are competing with college transfer guys, they're already developed. They've already proven they can play in college. So it makes the chances of getting scholarships, even those spots, are even less. So it's always a good idea to work really hard on your development and your skills and your film study.
No question. This is another great one. It's from a coach. I want to educate my team about NIL risk and opportunities, but I don't want to open a can of worms. What's the bare minimum high school coaches should be telling athletes about NIL?
As long as they're not initiating any deals saying, oh, I'll hook you up with this, we'll get you taken care of. You don't want to just stick your head in the sand and act like you don't know anything about NIL. You could do a quick, it's like I go in before school starts and talk to the players and the parents and kind of explain how it is. So that way, since I'm just all education, I don't go in and give any legal advice or anything. It makes it easier for me just to say, hey, here's the basics. This is how it works. And just to make sure the coaches don't potentially cross a line that they aren't even aware they might be crossing, then it's always good. I mean, I even do virtual stuff too, to talk to the kids or the coaches. Or I have a thing in a school district in Tennessee coming up next month where I'm talking to just the coaches and the ADs, so they know what they can say and what they can't say.
Awesome. Dr. John, I think that you said that you had 4 pillars or 5 pillars of NIL structure. Why don't you go ahead and get into that?
All right. So I kind of combine the freshman and sophomore on the online resource, but we'll break it down. Freshman, you just got to build your foundation. You got to work really hard in the weight room. If you're a football player, I always relate back to football, but it applies to track, soccer, tennis, softball, women's basketball, all that stuff. You got to focus on the fundamentals. You have to really make sure you're keeping your grades up, doing your film study. And this is all freshmen. Sophomore year, you're going to start potentially getting a little more attention. You can start to explore options like camps, visits to different colleges, things like that. Junior year, you're definitely more likely to get some NIL attention, but you still need to focus on your development and evaluate the fit for the particular school that might be looking for you or at you. So, if it's a scheme that you fit in with really well and you like the coaches, then okay, that's something that's good, and you can stay in touch and communication with those coaches. If you have a potential NIL deal, but you don't like the coaching staff, the scheme doesn't fit for you, then you can't let that money lure you into something that you're not going to be happy at for 4 or 5 years. And then the seniors, you just have to make sure you're not being emotional about anything and just be very clear, have your long-term goals in mind, and don't jump into anything, once again, with any kind of emotional attachment to it.
That applies to high school, which is awesome. And I know that's your area of specialty. What about JUCO? Would you say that JUCO athletes have to subscribe to the same philosophy as maybe a senior, or does that kind of fall under the college umbrella?
It's under the college umbrella because the NCAA, but I mean, any athlete, I don't care if you're in high school or college, the developmental part of it is always going to be really important. And if you are in JUCO, I always go back to Diego Pavia because he played JUCO and worked his way up and then made it to Vanderbilt, Heisman Trophy runner-up, had some character issues that got questioned there. But I mean, he is in camp with the Ravens now. So it's just, it doesn't matter where you start. And it used to be that 7% of all high school athletes played in college. But with the transfer portal in college now, that number is drastically less. And so you really have to keep all of your athletics really locked down so you know that you're the very best you can be. You've done everything you can to be the best you can be. So if it happens, great. And if it doesn't happen, well, then you can know in your heart that you did the very best you could do. And people can get upset about that, or, you know, oh, I tried so hard. But like, well, if you did your best, you're the only one that knows if you did your best. And if it wasn't good enough, you have to be able to swallow that pill and be like, okay, all right, well, you know, I did my best, and let's focus on the next step.
Awesome. Dr. John, we got Johnny Perkins jumping in. Johnny, how are you? How do we maintain the balance between student and athlete within the student athlete?
That is a very good question. And the way NIL is going now, it makes it even blurrier, the differences, because is blurrier a word? But because you have
it is
the
now.
athletes, you want to focus on that. But even back before NIL, it was kind of tricky because you had to make sure that you were keeping your grades up. And this is Derek Thomas, a superstar at Alabama back in the day. When I was in college, one of my neighbors said that she used to take all of his tests at Alabama and he couldn't even read. And so, I mean, it shows that long-term after your sport, you need to know your academics and keep that lined up with your sports. It's hard to do, but life's hard too. And so it teaches you how you can focus on one thing and be really, really dedicated to it. But then you also need to focus on the important stuff too, as far as the athletics or as far as the academics. So it's a fine balance, and especially with kids nowadays, because they just want to get paid right away and don't want to have to put the work in. Nothing against this generation, but I'm just saying that, you know, sometimes you have to really sit them down and be like, hey, you got to focus on your grades, because if you don't keep your grades up, you're not going to play. And so forget about how hard you're working for the sport. If you're not eligible based on your grades, then you don't have to worry about it.
For sure. Next slide we're going to get into is character cloud. And, you know, one of the things that makes Aaron and I such a good 1-2 punch is I've always been focused on the bigger, faster, stronger as a sports performance coach. And, you know, when Aaron came into the fold, she's like, well, what do you do about the character? What do you do about who the athlete is off the field? What do you do about helping these athletes post-career? And I had a very rude, immature response. I said, that's not my job. And she said, you should worry about that. That should be part of your job. Get into the character clout, Dr. John, because you played at the high school level, the college level, the pro level. How does character change from high school to college to pro, and should it change?
In high school, I feel like you're not even mature enough to even really totally understand what character is.
Right.
And that's part of the working really hard to do the best you can. That helps build character. They always say, you know, you get diamonds from lots and lots of pressure. And so you need to build your character there. And then your character gets tested when you go on to college, because there's going to be 10 times more distractions. And you need to keep in mind that, especially with NIL, you're protecting your brand. So you don't want to go out, since everybody and their dog has got a phone. You don't want to go out on you know, sorority row or whatever and have some big party and get, you know, videotaped doing something stupid. So you have to be responsible and mature enough to be like, hey, I signed up for this sport. I need to represent myself and this team in an appropriate way. And I know it's not fun, but I mean, it is what it is. So, you know, sorry, that's part of what you signed up for. And then when you go on to the pros, you have to realize that there's a lot of fans that are looking up to you. And once again, if you're doing stuff you probably shouldn't be doing, and you know you shouldn't be doing it, but you're doing it anyway, then that's not setting a good example for the fans. And I like to act like, okay, pretend like you have a fan that's 13 years old, and it's, in my case, it'd be like my daughter. And would you want them to see you doing something like that? No,
Right.
you wouldn't want them to see you doing that. So you have to be really careful about what you put out into the world, because people will judge in a heartbeat, and you need to make sure that you're squeaky clean and there's nothing going on. You make really good decisions. You're very mature about your decisions, which is, goes back to the NIL stuff. You're always thinking long term, and just trying not to be emotional about things.
Absolutely. That is such a good one. And I'm reluctant to share this story, but you know what? I'm gonna share it anyway. Dr. John, we had an athlete that went to a fraternity party. We always say that nothing good happens after 10 p.m. Went to a fraternity party. There was drinking involved. Some questionable things were said. The athlete said it was some racial slurs and so forth. Ended up in a physical fight, and the police were involved. And one of the things we're talking about is now you have a felony on your record. You're a big time athlete at a big time school. You're going to have a target on your back, and now you just ran the jeopardy of going from a first round to a third round pick, which could cost you consequently $10 million, right? If we're talking about the pro level. What do athletes need to be careful of at the high school and the college as well, revolving around temptation and just feel like they can still be a student athlete, be a student as well as an athlete? What are some cautionary tales they need to watch for?
I think, and this is going to tie into what you and Aaron are going to talk about later, I think that with the pressure that comes from representing your sports team, and now with all the NIL stuff, people deal with pressure in different ways. And if, the way you deal with pressure is going out and having a drink or something like that, just so you kind of numb out and don't have to worry about the stress, then that's going to put you at risk of getting into a situation like this. I had a friend that he would have a beverage or two, and he got in fights all the time. And I guess it's a funny story. He got in a fight with 4 guys and beat all 4 of them up by himself. And the next day, the head coach came to him and he said, you know what I thought when I heard there was a guy that beat up 4 guys? And my buddy was like, he's pretty stupid. He's like, no, I thought that was one bad dude. And I was like, well, that's not a good example. You don't want to tell him that. But I mean, this was way before cameras and all that stuff. But
sure.
But yeah, it's hard. And you have to, one of the best things you can do, I know it sounds weird, but if you are feeling the pressure, go to the gym. Go run, go do something productive that you enjoy, just to stay distracted from your pressure, just because I always said going to the gym was the best antidepressant out there. So just getting in the gym, and that way you're taking advantage of that negative pressure energy and getting that all taken care of. And if you have a problem going out and staying up late, I mean, I was at 10 o'clock at night going home. Nobody thought I was any fun. But if you are going to go out, be aware of where you're going to go. And if your boys are out there with you and then they're about to go to, some club where things get a little crazy, have the character to say, hey, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to go home. I love you guys. You guys have fun, but I got to protect myself and the team. And I just don't want to be involved with anything like that.
Gotcha. This is from another mom. Dr. John, my son is a 3-sport athlete. He's only a sophomore. What percentage of high school athletes actually get NIL deals, and what are some realistic expectations?
The percentage, like I said, because it's not a publicly known number, I can't really say the percentages. But as long as they're working really hard, doing the best they can in their sport, doing the proper social media posts, the NIL deals are going to come eventually. But just don't be doing a particular sport to get an NIL deal. Just do the sport because you love the sport, and then the universe, so to speak, is going to bring those deals to you over time. And we're still talking in high school, especially being as young as your was it daughter or son?
His son, who's a
with as young as your son is, he's got plenty of time for those NIL deals to come, and he just needs to be educated and aware of what to look for, and not, especially in this case, don't get excited when you get that very first NIL deal and be like, okay, here's the first one. We're going to have 40 before he graduates. It's like, once again, just stop, think about it, sleep on it, and really think long term, because long term for him is going to be a really long term, years from now. And is this something that's going to help or hurt where he wants to be years from now?
Sure. Dr. John, if you could give high school athletes, parents, and coaches one piece of advice about NIL, what would that be?
The biggest thing would be, well, it's kind of different for each. Well, the parents and the kids, I would say you need to stop whenever you get a deal. You can get all excited about it. That's great. But I would not even look at the deal until you sleep on it. Next day, okay, we're fresh, we're clear, we're not all emotional, excited. Let's look at it, read through it. And then I would even take another day and then really decide with your long-term goals in mind, okay, is this something I really want to do? And it could be hard, but I mean, if the deal's there now, it's going to be there tomorrow or it could be there the next week, the next month. But you need to really make sure it's something that you can look back on 6 months from now and actually be proud that you did take that deal, or if you didn't take that deal, because you never know if it's going to be a good or bad thing. And with coaches, it's just being educated on their high school association or the state association rules, the school's rules, and what they can and can't say. And I know it's just a whole nother thing they have to stress about, because then you got to worry about the playbook and the parents already and all this other stuff. And I mean, that's the reality. So you have to know what you can say and what you can't say.
Awesome. If you had a crystal ball, what direction do you think NIL is going? And do you think it's hand in hand with the transfer portal?
I think they do kind of go together, because since, like we talked about at the beginning, when we played, you transferred, you had to sit out for an entire year. Now you can transfer multiple times in a season, it seems like. And so I really hope, I know Florida, because they did have so many transfers that 1 year last year, that they're trying to revamp it a little bit so they can't transfer that much, because in the high schools, that's the tricky thing with all the transfers. They're losing a lot of ticket sales, because the local people that go to the games, they don't know half the people on the field, because they're all kids that transferred in from other places. And so their ticket sales are down, and that's not good for anybody. And it's hard to develop a culture with the team when you don't know who your teammate's going to be the next year. Nick Saban talked about it. He was like, when kids came to Alabama, I felt like it was my job to build men. And so they would stick together, and he would teach them and how hard work is so important and all that. And NIL started coming in. He's like, I can't do this anymore. He's like, I can't put all my energy into this particular player, and then the next semester they leave. It's like, it's not good. And that's one of the tricky things about the transfer portal is if you have a buyout clause in your NIL deal and you transfer, even if you just go up for the portal and don't get picked, you can have a buyout clause where you owe that company money because they gave you $2 million up front of a $10 million deal, but then you're breaking that contract. So now you have to pay them $3 million. And I guarantee you at that point, you don't have a lot of that $2 million left. And so you get in a really bad situation. So it's just really, it's hard. Some people have said, we're going to have NIL, we're going to have the rules be the same nationwide. So every state has the same rules. And it depends on how far down the road you're talking there. That might be the case. The one thing I'm concerned about is with the sports and the academics, if NIL really starts to take over kind of like it has in college, then it's going to kind of be like, okay, do we even want academics associated with sports? Or do you want to have just like club sports and they get their NIL stuff and then the academics are a whole different thing? And if that happens, we're going to have a whole generation of kids that have no idea how to survive in the real world because they didn't get any academic education.
Totally agree. That is definitely going to be a pitfall. We have a question from Brian DiNapoli. Hey, Brian, thanks so much for reaching out. What programs are doing the best job of developing character, leadership, and integrity in their student athletes? And what specific practices make them successful? Brian, it's University of Arizona. Going on to the next question. Oh, wait.
That's not it.
I don't know. That sounds like a question for you guys.
Yeah, it's us. Yeah, I think, what I would offer, I've been kind of quiet and fielding all the questions and stuff, but we got to take back, I think Thomas and I were having an interesting discussion this morning, is like, have we moved away from sports being, that meritocracy where you're really learning my merits, like, are really rewarded? Or are we making it more kind of in entertainment or that influencer culture? And so, for all the parents out there, I'm a parent, a mom of two athletes. One of the reasons why we even developed Blueprint to Blue Chip was that I saw that my kids needed this type of coaching around who are you as a human being? How do you make decisions from that? Because every decision you make is a negotiation with your future. So who do you want to be? And is every decision I'm making either adding to that, taking me closer to it, or is it detracting from that? So Johnny said it's UCLA. Brian, I'm going to shout out CU, the University of Colorado. But, I think a lot of universities and colleges are going to have to make more of this a focal point. I was on a call with somebody else today where it's like, not only is an education great, but where are these young men and women going to have jobs? So yeah, you might have an NIL deal, but now you're going to have to get an entry-level job after this. So our universities need to start focusing not just on how many kids graduate, that's great, but how many of these young men and women are now having jobs based on what they just got their degree in. And I think universities are going to have to start taking a hard look at that as well. So I'll say Blueprint to Blue Chip does the best job in the character development piece. And we obviously want to be in every university across this country to help these athletes know who they are, so they never losing sight of that, because I think that's where they go astray.
Brian, it's a great question. And what I'm going to do here, while you were answering that, Aaron, I did a real quick Google search here. Top rated school for athlete support is Ohio State, Clemson, and Michigan State, followed by Purdue. The biggest NIL spenders, University of Texas, Alabama, and Oregon. That's not a surprise. Schools with the strongest market advantage, University of Miami, University of Colorado, Aaron, and UCLA, Johnny. But I definitely, one of the things I'm going to give props to Dr. John is Vanderbilt. I think these athletes really need to look at universities academically, not just athletically. How is this going to benefit the athlete post playing? Because we know that the percentage of these athletes going on to play at the next level, be in the pros or the Olympics, is very small. You really got to take your education into account. And I can't think of a better university than Vanderbilt as far as getting an education. So I know Dr. John will attest to that. But Johnny, UCLA is up there, Aaron, Colorado. All of these are fantastic universities. So I really think that I hope that the athlete can really zero in on an education first and foremost, then look at their athletics, then look at the NIL opportunities. Because Dr. John, something that you and I didn't get into is you spent your entire career at Vanderbilt. Most athletes of our generation spent their entire career at one university. You have deep roots. If you were to pick up the phone and make a call to a booster or alumni, they're going to return that call. Whereas if you're an athlete that gets a reputation of jumping around and you try to make that call and the alumni or booster goes, how long was he here for? A semester? Why would I want to talk to him? So,
that's actually really funny, because the athletic director at Vanderbilt when I was there, Aaron will appreciate that. He is now the athletic director at the University of Colorado. And I just called him up the other day and he was like, hey, JD, what's up? And I'm like, that's a perfect example of what you're talking about.
There you go. These athletes, you can't keep it. It's got to be long term. It's got to play the long game. It can't be these short term decisions that'll derail you long term. Yeah, and again, something Aaron and I always talk about is playing the long game. Well, team, we're closing in on an hour. We want to be respectful of Dr. John's time. We want to be respectful of your time, and we're 2 minutes away from getting to happy hour here in the Mountain Division. So we want to be mindful. I don't drink. I don't party
None
anymore.
of us drink. I don't think. I don't want to speak for Dr. John.
I don't. Do people still go to happy hour? I don't even know what that consists of anymore. So, Dr. John, before you head out to happy hour, that seems to be. Oh wait, we got another question. Johnny, jump in. Texas will spend $40 million plus on just their football team this season, and I think $39 million is to Arch Manning. Johnny, you are absolutely right.
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah,
you're absolutely right on that one, Johnny. It's amazing that a lot of schools are trying to buy a championship. Agree, education. What Johnny's saying is education, I think, is what he's trying
he just has a stutter. It's okay.
So, yeah. Dr. John, where can athletes, families, coaches, ADs, recruiters, where can they get a hold of you?
They can email me at media@jdfootballtraining.com. It's a long one. Hopefully we can just put it in the notes.
Absolutely.
And I actually do have jdfootball.com or footballtraining.com/reality check, and they can get a downloadable version of all the different ways the freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior pass.
Whoa. Say that again. That's some important information.
The link?
Yep.
It's jdfootballtraining.com/reality check, all one word.
Awesome. And team, we got a QR code up there. No, it's not to the local happy hours here in Colorado. I'm going off on a tangent here. This is a QR code to reach out and get a hold of Aaron and myself, where we work with athletes, families, and coaches to make sure that these athletes are prepared for the next step. One of the things that Aaron and I really subscribe to is a lot of things is, one, we want to make sure that athletes, families, and coaches have enough information to make an informed decision. And two, it's important to be proactive as opposed to reactive. If you're reactive, we're in a hole and we got to dig our way out, and we don't like finding ourselves there. Dr. John, is there any parting thoughts that you want to instill on the audience?
I just appreciate being on, and I think it is really important for kids to realize that their athletics are just a part of their identity. It's not their entire identity. And being prepared for, potential projects or options coming down the line as far as NIL, it's really important, and keep all the emotion out of it.
Awesome. Big shout out and thank you to Johnny, to Brian, and to all those that submitted these questions. Keep them coming. We're definitely going to drop Dr. John's contact information. He's a great resource for your questions and your next step with NIL, recruiting, or anything football or sports related. Aaron, Dr. John, thank you so much. You guys have a fantastic weekend. Team, we'll see you next time. Take care. Have a great day.